Hello and welcome to the Beyond the 3D podcast. My name is Michael J. Russ. I'm your host. Today, I am recording my 100th episode, and I'm very happy about it. And I hope you are too. I hope that you're finding this podcast to be something that's really boosting your happiness, your productivity, fulfillment in life, that it's giving you the tools you need to transform your feelings in the moment from negative to positive, as I like to say, turning lead into gold. And I asked myself over and over again, I woke up in the middle of the night wondering sometimes what I was going to say in this podcast, what I was going to share in my 100th podcast. And I think I probably overthought it. I came up with so much information, like 6,000 words that I wrote, and I had to pare it down and make it succinct and specific. And I came up with kind of two parts. Why I called this the Beyond the 3D podcast, and also 4 things that you can do, 4 suggestions for living beyond the 3D every single day. So that's what this podcast, this 100th podcast, is about. Podcast number 101, I'm going to step off into the explanation of how the zero adversity technique that I share with you, that was from my best-selling book, and this concept of living beyond the 3D is really a way of proactively and preactively responding to what happens in life. And I'll get into that in episode 101, the next episode. But initially, I called this podcast the Powerful Living Podcast. That's what I called it, the Powerful Living Podcast. And in order to share concepts and ideas that you could apply to live an empowered life. And several years ago, I changed the title, rebranded this podcast to the Beyond the 3D podcast, because I sought to share something deeper and more tangible through elements that you could apply in real time to transform the way you feel, because when it's all said and done, it's how you feel that counts more than anything else. The core elements that I've focused on in the past 2 years are sovereignty, owning your power, and personal alchemy. And if I had to give you a mental picture of what a real-time transformation of your feelings might look like, it would be of you, while in the midst of experiencing a seemingly adverse event or scenario, stepping outside of your body, becoming the watcher, so to speak, to run a couple of quick diagnostics on yourself and asking yourself some questions through this diagnostic, and also examining your perceptions, and then choosing how you wanted to respond if necessary. And all this goes on in a split second. I've learned to do it very, very quickly because I've been doing it for a long period of time. Once you start doing it, start living that way, start approaching events that way, for you, it will become much easier. And you'll be able to more readily manage your feelings through what is going on. Now, the questions I usually ask myself are, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? And am I the one? Am I in control of my thoughts, feelings, words, and responses with this event? Am I perceiving what's going on in a positive or negative way? How can I respond in a way that honors my sovereignty and my power and is consistent with my power, with controlling my thoughts, words, feelings, and actions? Which elements of alchemy should I mix to transform my feelings? All this goes on, I said, in a quick second. And sometimes I sit back and just think about things, because sometimes you don't need to respond so quickly to things, so that you can take it in, you can examine your initial response, you can go back and say, okay, examine your perceptions about it and the way you feel, and you've got time. And so sometimes it's not always snap of the finger. And I know this concept of transformation and these questions and stepping outside yourself, that can seem a bit out there. However, you are entirely capable of mental multitasking when things occur. You can do this. You just need to train yourself to do it. I have continually encouraged you to view life as a living classroom or laboratory for applying the ownership of your sovereignty and power and practicing alchemy to live beyond the 3D experience, to feel happy on a regular basis. And when you're happy, other things just seem to fall into place. You're more productive, resilient, compassionate, empathetic, loving, successful, kind, and giving. If you recall, though, when it comes to personal alchemy, I explained 16 elements. And these are the elements that you can mix together. And I think the example that I gave was having a bowl in front of you when things happen. And mentally, you have a bowl in front of you, and you've got these 16 elements around. And you decide to mix one or more together of these elements together and to change the way you feel. The 16 elements that I outlined were receptivity, because you have to be receptive to new information, and receptive to the idea that you can transform your perceptions. Awareness, just talked about awareness with regard to how you can transform your feelings, stepping outside yourself, the watcher. That's sort of awareness. Your perceptions, the most important, pivotal, foundational element, I should say, because they dictate pretty much everything that follows. Contrast, the difference between one thing and another. Successful response, which I outlined in my book, Zero Adversity, which is a way for you to respond. Let's give an example, either taking action if you can, if your actions will change anything, or just not taking any action at all being the most successful response that you can make. Letting go, talked about that a couple of episodes ago. Self-talk, gratitude, forgiveness, non-judgment, unconditional love, empathy, compassion, kindness, personal responsibility, and giving, which I'm now going to change to altruism. That's going to be the name for that. Giving without the need for reciprocation, without the need of even a thank you. You're giving because it's something you know you want to do, it's the right thing to do, and you don't need anybody to codify that giving. You're giving. My mission for this year has been to enable you to see how these 16 elements of alchemy can transform your feelings, giving you examples and kind of diving into each one of them. And you can make this transformation of your feelings in a snap of your finger, as I've said before. And I sincerely hope that you've succeeded to some degree in applying some of these, even if it's only perception. And I said before, if you only use one of these 16 elements and none of the others, the most powerful one you can use is perception. Perception, as I said earlier, it dictates everything that follows. You think something's bad. That's a perception. If you shift that perception to something more positive or neutral, like it's not so bad, or it's just a thing, or that's a good thing, when I originally thought it was a bad thing, your feelings are going to change just like that, automatically. Your thoughts about it are going to change. Everything, your response to it is going to change. So if you only use one, that's going to be your go-to at all times. And it'll help you in little minor disagreements and arguments, events that happen at the office, in your home life, with regard to intimacy and connection. I've talked about the power of perception in all of these instances, these circumstances. Now, I must say, in my mind, I've been just bowling over with ideas and questions and things that I really wanted to ask you. Obviously, I'm not going to get a response directly back from you, but it's something for you to think about. And I really want to know what these questions are designed to do is to elicit at least some idea of how this podcast has impacted your life. And have you been applying some of what you've been hearing, and how has it really been affecting you? I have people, the average person who downloads this podcast downloads 50 episodes at a time. And I'm sure they end up listening to them. I'm sure you have ended up listening to them for over some period of time, which is awesome. You're going to get the full breadth of things. It's like a binge listening situation. And for those of you who've given me your golden feedback already, up to this point, like you, Cheryl, and others, I really appreciate it. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, the first question I have for you is, are you feeling it? Are you feeling it? Are you feeling your sovereignty and power? Are you feeling that you are the one in control of your thoughts, self-talk, feelings, responses to life's unending stream of scenarios and challenges? Are you more aware of your self-talk and crafting those inner conversations that generate energy, enthusiasm, happiness, and success? Is your self-talk supporting your actions, intentions, goals, and dreams? Or is it doing something else? Is it doing the opposite? Is it sabotaging them? I often think about, when it comes to self-talk, I often think about this interview I saw, and it was of Centoya Brown recently in the past month. At the age of 16, Centoya Brown was given a life sentence for killing a real estate agent who was trafficking her in sex. She was given clemency after 15 years and has written a book about her experiences just recently called Free Centonia. And in the interview on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, the host, Centoya revealed how she was able to cope in prison, not knowing when or if she would be set free in the future. And this can be an interesting situation. You're a captive there. And I'm constantly harping on the importance of self-talk when it comes to productivity, happiness, and overall success. And it was great to hear Centoya reveal the self-talk she applied to set the stage for a positive attitude, being productive while in prison, and sustained enthusiasm. While there, she got her GED and obtained a college degree. I think she actually obtained 2. What she revealed in this conversation with Trevor Noah is how she chose to say, and she really was specific about this. She says, I said when I get out of prison. That is the way she framed her inner conversation. She said she chose to say when I get out of prison, instead of if I get out of prison, like all the other inmates. And she specifically said that, like all the other inmates, I said when instead of if. And there's a powerful dynamic between these two that's at play here in terms of self-talk. The power of using the phrase when I get out of prison cannot be understated. And for her, I think it was a brilliant move. The distinction between when as opposed to if, at first, might seem inconsequential, but it's a huge thing when it comes to self-talk. The word when infers sovereignty and control over your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. You see, she used when in order to empower herself forward. She claimed her sovereignty. She never gave up her sovereignty. The word if brings your sovereignty and control into question. And it does nothing to energize, inspire positivity, hope, energy, and action. And it actually puts your sovereignty and control over how you feel into the hands of someone else. If is like a victim statement. If this occurs, it's at the behest of someone else's power and control. You get the distinction? I really, really hope you do, because it's pretty powerful stuff. This is what I listen to when I hear interviews of people who've had adverse circumstances in their life. I want to know what their thought process was. I want to know what they were thinking when they had to overcome that situation, when they had to be more resilient, when they had to bounce back from something. And I want to know another couple of things too. I'm going to ask you these questions. Has something in these podcasts become so sticky in your mind that you could never go back to the person you used to be? I know for me, sometimes I'll read something, just a nugget of gold out of something, and it'll stick with me, and it'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And I'll just kind of weave it into my whole thought process and my process and approach to events and circumstances. Here's another question. Has your approach to seemingly adverse events and scenarios changed as a result of listening to these podcasts? Are you thinking and acting from sovereignty? Are you minimizing the impact of distractions on your thoughts and feelings? Talking about distractions, I talked about that in several episodes. And have you made personal alchemy real for you? Have you gone to your perceptions when you were feeling at a low point during the day and ask, why am I feeling low? What occurred today that made me feel this way? What perceptions did I have about that thing? Because generally, you can get a gut punch when you, from something somebody says or an action that someone's taken out of your control, some change that's going on, somebody gave you some information, and it kind of seems like a gut punch because that's the way you took it, as a gut punch, as something negative. And you can go back and re-examine the situation, and sometimes you'll come out and you say, it's not so bad. Initially, I thought the worst. However, I changed that perception, and now I feel better. That's the way it works. Now, I sincerely hope you feel that you're moving in the right direction for you, which is all that matters. Not me, not somebody else, but you. The ability to shift your feelings, thoughts, and self-talk at will is not a pipe dream or something other people are capable of. It's not. It's you. You're capable of it. Now, my mission with this podcast has always been one of awareness, to make you aware of how you can feel amazing with infinite energy and enthusiasm, confidence, passion for life, the creativity galore, and have these feelings every single day of your life. Now, one of the most valuable things that I was told way back when is feelings are the fuel of manifestation. And I thought about that for, God knows, a long time. It just ran through my head. So what a profound statement. This actual statement is one of many that have helped me be who I am and experience my life the way I do today. And that's kind of the way I've worked it. I read things and that I come across, I'm guided to read, and I find something in there that actually is important and relevant to me that day at that time in my life, and it carries it forward. So I kind of create my own book of thoughts and ideas. They kind of envelop my philosophy. They're woven into my philosophy of life. It's probably the best way to put it. And what I would encourage you to do is to examine your philosophy of life. I talked about this in one other episode. The importance of having a philosophy, what you will and won't do in your life under any circumstances, is part of your philosophy. Being aware, choosing to be aware, choosing to be mindful, in other words, and of how you feel is a philosophy. Making sure that negative feelings that you have at the moment don't impact the lives of other people, don't impact or negatively affect the feelings of other people. I like to deal with my own issues. If I have something going on, I'll go inside. I'll work it out from within. I don't go to outside sources and people to dump on them or make their lives in aura toxic with what I've got going on. Now, if I have a question, that I'd like to satisfy, where I need someone's opinion, then I'll ask them and I'll frame it that way. I just want your opinion about this. It's not that I'm telling them the whole story and dumping on them and all of that. I'm really against all of that. Other people have issues that they're dealing with. You could say everybody's got problems. They don't want to hear about yours. It's true. However, if you've got something going on, you need to talk to somebody, there are people to talk to. If you're suffering from depression, mental illness is huge in our society right now. It always has been. Thank goodness there's a light being shined upon it today. Because there is something called clinical depression. I've got other thoughts about how kids today, more kids are depressed in their life. Deal with that another time. However, I urge you to become acutely aware of your feelings and remember that feelings are always driven by perceptions. All right? Seeing yourself, like the perception of seeing yourself as a victim, which is most common in our society today. It's huge. Nothing is more debilitating than seeing yourself as a victim, regardless of what you've experienced. It's so easy to brand yourself as a victim. I think somebody wrote a book called A Nation of Victims about 20 years ago, 20 years plus. And I never read it because I was busy doing something else or reading some other stuff, traveling, doing whatever. However, a nation of victims. We have a victim consciousness in this country where we want to blame somebody else for what's going on in our lives. And sometimes, hey, even if you're held back because of somebody else's prejudice or bias or judgment, We still must take responsibility. We still must maintain our sovereignty, and we still must own our power in that situation. We can't just give it away. Where there's a will, there's a way. May not happen that time. May have to go somewhere else. May have to, circumvent that person if possible. There's a way. Persistence, persistence, persistence. Now, as I've said many times, although you might feel like making the move to be a victim, although you have every right to, you should know that that is a one-way ticket. A one-way ticket to giving away your power, the power that you've somehow claimed. You just give it away. It's easy. Okay? To the power to control your own thoughts and your own feelings. If you become aware that you've become a victim in your own life play, please step back and take a breath and remember, you can rewrite your state of being. You can rewrite that scene and regain control by addressing your perceptions about what has occurred. I mistakenly, give you a couple of examples of things. I mistakenly called the cell phone of a woman who ran into me last spring. And she thanked me immediately and profusely for not being a jerk. She complimented me on my demeanor and not making her feel terrible about what she did. I could see at the time she felt terrible. I did not look forward to my car being in the shop for several days, and I certainly didn't look forward to, after I found out, waiting 4 months for my car to be fixed because of Hurricane Michael and the damage that it did to so many body shops in our city. Body shops were just overflowing, just like mechanic shops, overflowing with business. And I chose not to invest negative emotions into the incident. And I really told her right then and there, the moment it happened, these things happen. And you should not follow any set pattern of belief here that I'm going to come and, knock your block off. You shouldn't let it affect how you feel. Something she was very surprised to hear from me, the person she ran into. Things happen to you all the time. I chose not to play the role of victim, and my car was damaged and I needed it to be repaired, and that was the end of the story. The next time something happens to you, stop and take a breath and do this. Think twice about whether you want to play that role. Enough about victims. Now, actually, no. Let me tell you another one. This is really even more interesting because I had to call a friend of mine. I got a lot of friends down here. I called a friend of mine, and I wanted to know if he could come over for dinner. We were having a little dinner party. He and his wife could come over. Well, lo and behold, I find out that he and his wife were separated. And they own a business together, and it was a very successful business. And from what he told me, Hurricane Michael took its toll on their relationship. They were very giving people, and they gave away a lot of meals. And something changed. I don't know what it was, and it's none of my business. And that he said they were getting a divorce, and that the divorce, the turn of events towards divorce, separation, divorce, were being driven by her. And when you are on the receiving end of a forced separation, it's so easy to make yourself out to be the victim of that separation and thereby be controlled by what the other party thinks, does, and says. Okay? During our initial conversation, when I found out about his separation, I felt bad for the both of them because I knew her. Such happy-go-lucky people, very productive, very creative, very inspired to do what they were doing. And I thought that resonated through their entire relationship. And, sometimes things can occur. Feelings can change. And what I heard and felt in his voice was normal for someone in the throes of this transitional life event, not traditional. It's always a transition. And when I checked with him a few weeks later, though, he had already accepted that divorce was imminent and that there was nothing he could do to change that direction. Now, his voice, the second time, reflected that he had come to terms with what had happened and had decided not to play the role of victim and was moving on. He was picking up the pieces of their business and in complete control of when and how he was going to move forward and how he feels as he does, which is awesome, absolutely amazing to me that he was, and I loved it. I like this guy, and we're going to get together for brunch. Sandy and I here going to get together for brunch sometime in the next couple of weeks. I want to pivot now to something that is highly influential when it comes to living beyond the 3D. And I'm talking about the information age we're living in. It's the elephant in the room, and so woven into your life at this point that you fail to realize its impact on your thoughts, feelings, and actions. The world has changed in dramatic ways since I was young. In my view, the pace of life seems faster because information flows at such an exponential pace. The technology has put information at our fingertips by allowing it to control us by traveling at speeds greater than the speed of light. As something is unfolding in the world, anywhere in the world, you can often follow it in real time through social media or even as breaking news on your favorite news station, or news source, I should say. I've often said information, regardless of its form, has become the ultimate distraction, and it has. What's even more disturbing is how 50% of those surveyed recently get their news from Facebook and other social media. In a recent newspaper column by Eric Erickson entitled "The Coming Algorithm Civil War," he quotes from a BuzzFeed article by Catherine Miller, who proposes that the 2010s have broken our sense of time. Now, Miller theorizes that social media algorithms have reorganized our lives, that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the rest of the internet crew now show content in a timeline designed to increase our interaction and our clicks, not as breaking news of the moment. Now, Erickson goes on, the author of this article goes on to say, things that happened a week ago appear repeatedly in our timelines as if they were fresh and new. I mean, is this alarming you yet? People get mad, he says, at the news because the news is being designed to make them mad. I've always said, news, the media itself, when it puts out news, they figure out how to, the news that the lead storyline to the last storyline go in order of how much emotional grab it has. Okay? How much emotional impact. And the algorithm that these social media has created, it feeds the flame of making you mad. It feeds that fire. Teen suicide rates, he says, have climbed since the introduction of the iPhone. And he writes, kids on Instagram and Snapchat can now over and over again relive the images of their friends at the parties they didn't even know were happening, which is driving their depression. Wow. Erickson writes, these algorithms amplify the damage created by acting on your worst impulses from years ago when you were young and didn't know any better. There is, of course, one cure for this, he says, but it is one no one has incentive to provide when everyone and everything is now anchored in the digital. What is that incentive? What is that cure? Get offline and into your communities, he says. Something I've always professed. In my view, relational connection to other human beings, which seems to have gone the way of the dodo bird with some people, is the only way to stop this runaway train of emotional upheaval the digital world has wrought upon us. If you have become addicted to your digital devices to the point where they're controlling you and the way you think and feel instead of the other way around, your awareness of this fact should be the impetus you need to right the ship. I know, it's an addiction. It's going to be a challenge because you've become addicted to that news feed, to the notifications, to the beeps, the dings, and the buzzes. After reading Erickson's eye-opening article, I've noticed how divisive the articles are that I'm receiving in my notifications. And I just started to think, wow, this is it. Because a couple of the articles that I received were old. They were a week old. I go, wow. Because I value my time like it was gold, solid gold. I quickly assess any of the notifications that I receive. I just take a quick peek at them, boom, that's it, and delete them in many cases without further consideration, because most of the things I receive are old hat, or they're just simply repackaging an existing storyline. And usually that storyline is incredibly negative. Now, if you truly want to be the one in charge of your life, living beyond the 3D world, be the one dictating your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Reassess the amount of information you expose yourself to each day, where it's coming from, and how often you're receiving it. And most importantly, how it makes you feel. Who knows? You might even free up time for more interesting pursuits. Unless you are the one making news, the information you're exposing yourself to has nothing to do with you directly. It's just noise that will have no impact on you, your goals, or your dreams when you separate yourself from it, like you usually do while you're on vacation. You could be happy as a lark 1 minute and then get notified about something unfolding in the world, and bam, your whole state of mind is transformed to your detriment. There's no excuse for not taking complete control of the flow of information you're exposing yourself to. Absolutely none. That's my opinion, of course. You can begin to experience life beyond the 3D world that generates anger, discontent, stress, fear, frustration, and more right now by doing these 4 things. Number 1, take control of the flow of people, information, and distractions you're exposing yourself to. Take control. When you're at home, everybody and everything wants a piece of you. It's up to you to control when, where, and how long, if you can. Even if you have to micromanage certain aspects of your life, go ahead. Number 2, do one thing that makes you feel great every day. One thing. Start designing your life experience instead of just responding to it, letting it go by. Curate something you love into every single day, actively creating time for and engaging in something you know will enhance your happiness. Bring happiness to the moment. Enhance the flow of happiness through you. Take a morning walk. Listen to your favorite music as you shower. Meditate. Hit a few golf balls after work. Go for a run. Watch your favorite TV show. Have a quiet lunch with a good book. Or just sit with a good book for a few minutes, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, or half an hour. Find the time to sequester yourself. The list of what you could do is endless and personal, very personal to you, because it's supposed to be. What's important is that it's something just for you. Make it so. Number 3, stop responding to every event. Events and scenarios can be either direct, as I said before, or where they impact you directly, or indirect, where they are happening to others. They're happening around you, outside of you, something you're witnessing. If you want to create more space for happiness to flow, stop feeling as if you need to respond to events. Train yourself to let go of indirect events without giving a response, and be very particular about when and how you invest your time and personal resources into what you encounter. Many scenarios will be just fine without your attention or input. The litmus test for responding should be this question: will anything I do have a positive impact? If not, simply let it go. This is one a lot of people, because we live in a society that's very judgmental, we feel we have to judge everything. So you see something happen, you're driving down the road and you see an auto accident, and you have to start asking, well, how did that happen? When did that happen? Why isn't somebody there? How come there's so many people there? You start occupying your mind with all of these questions about the event, about something that has nothing to do with you. What you want to do is send some grace and some positive feelings, positive light to whatever has occurred, to the people who have been impacted by the event. I simply go by and say, I hope everybody's all right, and keep driving. That's if nothing I can do will have an impact on the situation. If I were the one who witnessed the event, and there was something I could do that would help, I would definitely stop and help. That's the successful response. Even if it's just calling the cops or it's taking care of someone, extricating somebody from a vehicle, whatever it might be. One time I just had a tire come towards me and I took the tire back and I, set it there and they said everything was cool. They got, people had made phone calls and I said, fine, thanks. Moved on. Number 4, and finally, focus on positives. Focus on the positives. I am certain you've been told to be positive at some point in your life. It's kind of redundant in some growing up with me. Be positive, Well, I'm not just talking about being positive. I'm talking about focusing your thoughts, feelings, energies, time, and inner conversations in a positive direction. This is something you choose to do. Being positive is very nebulous. What does that mean? Just be positive. What I'm giving you is the nuts and bolts here. Focus your thoughts, your feelings, energies, time, and inner conversations, your self-talk, in a positive direction. You got to monitor this. When your personal resources are focused in a positive direction, you become a force of nature, a force that is hard to derail by negativity, other people's negativity, negative events. Build up a bank of positivity. The enthusiasm can carry you through a lot of different things. You can choose to do this, so get to it. These 4 actions are really part of what I affectionately refer to as my me policy. It's my me policy. I guarantee you'll feel differently after weaving them into your life. Every morning here, I make sure I take a walk, either with my girlfriend or by myself, but I make sure I take a walk. The walk is really for me. I love the company when she comes along. However, it's for me, and I do it regardless of whether she does it or not. I don't base my walk on whether or not she is going to be there with me. She rides her horse. That's her me time. She rides her horse, practices dressage in her arena, and she loves it. It's something she's impassioned about. It makes her life glorious, makes it wonderful, generates all those positive feelings. What do you do? What do you do? Now, living beyond the 3D is very much about taking responsibility for your own life as well, and your health and your feelings and your state of mind and your actions, your responses to what goes on. Elevate yourself. Elevate yourself. Rise above what's going on. Live beyond this third-dimensional nightmare, the chaos, it can be a nightmare, can be chaotic, can be crazy, can be ridiculous even. Something you should keep in mind, a couple of things. You are no good to anyone else when you're not first being good to yourself. That's why you do these 4 things that I talked about elevating yourself beyond the 4D, the 3D. You have to. You should also keep in mind what you do is not as important as how you feel about what you do, how what you do makes you feel. Get that? There's 2 different ways to do that. So look at that. How what you do makes you feel. Because feelings are everything. It's not the jet ski riding, it's how you felt while you were on the jet ski. It's not how I feel when I drive it's about how I feel actually when I drive my convertible. It's not the fact that I'm driving a convertible. I like to have the top down and my head, but there's nothing between me and the heavens. Me and those beautiful cloud formations above me, whatever, however you want to look at it. I love the wind blowing through my hair across my body as I'm driving. I like the freedom, the feeling of freedom that I get from taking the top down and driving on a beautiful day. There's nothing like it. It's awesome. It could be any convertible. Inexpensive convertible, very expensive convertible, doesn't matter. I just like it. I love it. I always have. When all is said and done, you might not remember the specifics of an event, but you'll always remember how you felt, how that event made you feel. What's that Judy Garland song? Life is a cabaret? Life is a cabaret. Okay, whatever. I saw that movie the other day. It was awesome. So did my friend Cheryl. Did it, girl. It's up to you, though. It's up to you to make your life a cabaret. Be mindful of your right to live beyond the 3D and enjoy every step of that journey. That's it for number 100. Time to move on to number 101. I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Big thanks to those of you who have been sharing this podcast. I really do appreciate it. You know I do. And even if you don't tell me, I'm not really I'm not looking for the reciprocation here. I just know that in my heart that the people who need this podcast are listening to it. The people who are expanding their awareness, their conscious awareness, and who need what I'm sharing, the nuggets of what I'm sharing, to help them move forward in their lives right now, whichever one of you, all of you who are listening to this on a regular basis. I know I'm reaching the right people. It's not about reaching thousands. It's about reaching the right people. Okay? I appreciate your time, your courtesy. Wish you the best. And know that you're in my heart. Be well. Take care.